All right.
The regular meeting of the Planning Commission is called to order. We will now take a moment for silent prayer and mediation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Williams. Paulina, can you please take roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Heng, right here. Commissioner Lewis did mention he will not be able to attend this evening. And then Commissioner Becerra here. Vice Chair Williams, present. Chair Gutierrez.
Here. Thank you. Now we will go to approval of minutes. Tonight we have minutes from the regular meeting on June 27, 2023. After reading the minutes, I noticed some corrections needed to be done in regards to who nominated the chair and vice chair of the commission, and instead of Commissioner Williams originally nominating the chair, it will be Commissioner Lewis who originally made the motion to nominate the chair. And does anyone else have any other changes they would like to make?
No.
The minute, and okay, so the minutes are approved as amended. Oral communications. Would anyone like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? We'll now move on to public hearings. We have no public hearing items tonight, so we will move on to non-hearing items. Who will present the staff report?
Good evening, Chair. Our planning manager, Joanne Burns, will be providing the presentation this evening.
Good evening, Chair, Honorable Chair, members of the Planning Commission. The item before you is a study session of the Design Review Subcommittee guidelines. The Design Review Subcommittee is in the city's municipal code as two members of the Planning Commission that is responsible for making advisory decisions on subcommittee design review applications. And this item is being presented before you because the last study session that was delivered or made to the Planning Commission occurred in March of 2019. And in order to stay current with construction trends, it is beneficial to review the design review guidelines every 3 to 5 years and present it to the Planning Commission so that the Planning Commission can advise staff on which items in the guidelines the Planning Commission feels should be retained or be removed, or additional items be placed. The design review guidelines were created in order to be more transparent to the public, and whether it's property owners, designers, or architects, so that we would let them know a specific direction, provide them specific direction on which residential projects will likely be approved if certain items are designed a certain way based on the guidelines. So according to the West Covina Municipal Code, there are subcommittee design review application review thresholds, and those 6 thresholds are included in the projector above. Therefore, new single-family residences, any additions or modifications in the front of the house, 2-story additions, new 2-story homes, balconies, or any modification that one can see standing in front of the public right-of-way, sidewalk, or street. There are 5 review criteria identified in the West Covina Municipal Code. It ranges from building materials and color scheme to utilizing a design that's harmonious and that is consistent with the neighborhood. We're looking at neighborhood compatibility and good overall design. One of the items, and I'll go ahead and show the items, the wording and the design review guidelines on the projector later on in the presentation for both the 1-story and 2-story portions of the design guidelines. But one item that stood out over the years as, I guess, where people had issues with and that they were constantly bringing up to the design review subcommittee is requiring alternative materials or 2 or more building materials to be included in the front facade of the house. This requirement all started several years ago. The city has a lot of ranch-style homes that have wood siding and brick siding along the front elevation. So over the course of time, what people have been doing is they either don't like the look of the wood siding or the siding in front of the house, or it became a maintenance issue, a more expensive maintenance issue that they'd rather replace with stucco. So the picture above is a house that used to have alternative materials when this track was built, that was replaced completely with stucco. And the picture below is another house within the neighborhood that has its original wood siding design, so that the Planning Commission can see the difference and could somehow relate to the original intent of this requirement. And on another sense, we do have property owners who prefer having no alternative materials because they want to modernize and design their homes to look more contemporary and more, I guess, so that they remove alternative materials and they just replace it with some type of smoother stucco finish and with darker trim, or at times an overall darker paint color of the stucco main building. These are some of the items that we have come across with and that we would like to bring up and get the Planning Commission's opinion on. This study session is not formal, so feel free to go ahead and speak and bring up certain issues as you see fit. And if there are items in each slide that you would want to discuss, feel free to jump in. And at the end, I'll also ask questions if you have any questions. So I'll go ahead and start going over the 1-story design guidelines. This is a portion, the first 4 items in the one-story design guidelines. We did provide the wording in the presentation on the city's website to make it more accessible so that there would no longer be a need to be able to read everything in verbatim in order to have or address any accessibility issues. So does the Planning Commission have any questions or would like to bring up an issue related to these 4 items on the projector? And the third item is what I had brought up in the picture prior to this slide regarding whether or not there is still a need to require the alternative materials other than just stucco, or would there be a preference to leave it up to the property owner what materials they would like to use?
You know, my thought, I don't know exactly the year that the majority of the houses were built, if it was in the 60s or mid-50s. And I understand things have kind of changed, but unless they are deciding to really do a complete remodel to make it look modern, to have the front just be a smooth stucco, it doesn't really provide, you know, if you see on HGTV, for curb appeal. So if they're not going to attach a brick veneer or wood or some other type of product, would they then be willing to put some type of a hedge or something so that from the street there is a break and it doesn't just look like a box with windows and a door?
I believe it should be at the discretion of the residents myself. I did the same thing to my home. I had wood siding, and I removed it, and it made my house have a new look, it looks like a newer home now. Some people even come and ask me, is this a new home that you built? No, I didn't. I mean, we're not a homeowners association here. There were nothing to sign, no rules, no CCNRs to adhere to, and I don't think that is something that we should be deciding on.
And I'll say that I think allowing residents, if they were to do a modern look and it's determined that the look that they're proposing is modern, then I will say that yes, they should be allowed to build a modern, contemporary house looking home here in the city of West Covina. But at the same time, I think there has to be parameters set around that to make sure that it's not just a way to, go around go around the system to do it the cheap way. Now, if they're going to build and they're going to do it correctly and they're going to make it modern and I know when I was on the subcommittee design, I think there was a Japanese style contemporary housing that was very beautiful because it's a new modern design that I know attracts a lot of families to the city of West Covina, and those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. So currently, what we do is based on the changes that they're going to be made, if they're proposing alternative materials, then and if that's the only thing that they're proposing, it would be staff discretion. And if they refuse to propose alternative materials or they want to design it with just stucco, then we forward it to the Design Review Commission for review. So at this time, we can continue doing that.
Okay.
Are we the only city doing this?
There are other cities with more specific design guidelines. So basically, they have, if your architectural style is Mediterranean, you have to have like arches, smooth stucco, wrought iron details and so forth, and wood roof tiles. So it's very specific like that. Or if you want a ranch style home, you have to have this type of like wood siding, this type of roof, and so forth. And there are also some cities that have specific guidelines that require a certain paint. So it really varies. And there are also other cities that don't require anything.
So let me get this. So you've owned your house 50 years in West Covina, and you want to make it look newer and update it on the outside. You have to get permission?
Yes.
Yeah, because, well, just to kind of let you know, some cities have a historic preservation ordinance. And one thing that California is known for are the ranch-style homes. That's one of the style of houses. And with some cities, they will let residents know up front. If your house is older than 45 years of age, then they want you to check with someone at planning if they have a historic preservation ordinance, even if it's voluntary. Because if the house were designed by someone who was significant to that particular city that built and designed that house, they don't want to necessarily erase that information.
So this would have to be something that would be given to somebody who's buying a home in West Covina, or somebody, I mean, there's a house two doors down it's more Asian ethnic city. So if you build a new house, you can make it however you want, but if you've been there a while, you can't do it.
Well, no. For example, I happen to do some consulting work for a city which is in the Los Angeles area. And what they have seen happen is in their smaller residential areas, which is referred to as the flat, those are 5,000 square foot lots up to 7,000. People are coming in and demolishing the houses outright. But because their city is aware of the history, they will ask them when they are talking about doing something that drastic or modifying, they ask them to provide some information and speak with their person because they have a historical.
Right, but we don't have any historical. I think Covina has that area off of by the park by Covina. What's that called? And then Pomona has Lincoln Park.
No, actually, Covina does have a historic preservation.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
No, they actually have an ordinance. And what they did was they brought in professionals to identify not just residential areas, but commercial as well. And they have quite a few different structures and so forth that are in residential and commercial and industrial areas. And so they do happen to have that type of information.
So we're going to adopt this authoritarian type of new.
Well, I know in West Covina we have probably, I know in District 1 it's probably maybe 2 or 3 historic homes, but again, I don't think West Covina homeowners, new owners, want to forever live a ranch-style design, and I think that they should be given the right to modernize and move to a city where they could prosper in design and modern look, because West Covina is no longer a 20th century city. It's a 21st century city that requires modernization in order to grow. And I know the census says we have less than 120,000 people now, but I think that's because people were afraid to submit that. But regardless, there's over 120,000 people living in the city of West Covina, and I think homeowners who are moving into the city should have the opportunity to do a modern design, but at the same time put regulations in place that will prohibit a half-fast job in accomplishing that.
You paid $800,000 for a house in West Covina for someone to tell you how to paint it, what color, and or to stucco or not to stucco. To me, that I don't know. Why are we? Is this already adopted? And I mean, why? What's the reasoning?
There's already design guidelines, and so this is if we want to look at amending them or changing them, and that's what tonight is. It's feedback.
Because normally when someone goes to buy a home, one of the things they do take in consideration is the curb appeal, or else they would not have gone ahead and offered to buy the house.
That's not entirely true. I'm a realtor. They buy it and they look at the potential. Well, we could do this, we could do that, and we can make it, we'll pay a little bit less, needs some fixing, and we'll fix it the way we want. That's what, there's no disclosure when you buy a house that you're going to have to get a city's permission. I've never seen it.
Well, in the state of California,
It has to be disclosed then. And that would deter people from wanting to move
in
here.
the state of California, as you are aware as a realtor, it is understood for insurance purposes, you need to have permits for the work that you do. And so that is why you have a planning department, a building department, an engineering department, because there are technological changes that happen. In Northern California, because of the ages of the homes, some of the residents have already been told by their city, they're going to have to update their entire electrical service in their home. And that is very expensive. And they understood that the house that they had was old.
That's different.
It's a safety issue.
That's a safety issue. Painting your house is not a safety issue.
Right, but see, we're not talking about telling them what colors that they can paint their house. There are some cities that have that in their design guidelines. We don't. All that we're asking is that if you're on a street and it happened to be a track house, then the city does want to be able to see what type of changes you're talking about making.
Right, but those weren't track houses I saw there in their pictures.
In the picture that I showed, they are track homes.
Yeah.
Well, okay, old track.
Yeah, old track. In the 60s.
It's a modern look. So yeah, I think it should be studied that I think giving the homeowner the opportunity to modernize their home. Sometimes stucco or these other materials don't go with the design. And we saw this with most recently in a Japanese contemporary housing design that was brought to the subcommittee because it just doesn't go. And when, yeah.
The one on top, I think they did a nice job remodeling and updating it.
Most of those homes that look towards your right, you go inside it, it's all high-tech technology. And most of those homes that are being designed these days, they look like that. It's high-tech technology, saving energy, saving gas, saving stove, everything. And I think that we need to create an opportunity so homeowners do have that option to modernize their home. And then also at the same time, I know through subcommittee there was questions in regards to what happens if the homeowner can't afford adding stucco to their front of their house, because that's additional, maybe $20,000 to $30,000 additional on top of their contracting work they have to pay for. And I think that we need to create a system that addresses that too, and maybe puts maybe gives the authority to the building director to make that decision or some sort, but as long as it's somehow addressed. Because I know there was questions around where does that go from there, and if they need to apply for an appeal to the council and all that stuff.
I think what makes our city unique is the diversity. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. But I can go down my street and see, many different styles. There's just, I don't see that that's ever been an issue before.
So just to clarify and also describe the process, if an applicant wanted to just change the materials along the front facade, no addition, just the material change, what staff does is that if it complies with the design guidelines, we approve it. And right now, the design guidelines require alternative materials other than just stucco. But if they do not want to do that, and if they have some type of contemporary design in mind, then we forward it to the design commission. And the application fee for a subcommittee design guideline just for the material change is currently $100. So right now, we forward it to the subcommittee design review application, although the work staff time that it takes forwarding it to the subcommittee design review is a lot more than the amount that we charge. We charge no more than $100 for that type of review. And we schedule it as soon as possible, typically at the next available subcommittee design review meeting.
So this has already been in effect. How long has this been in effect?
It's been in effect since the subcommittee, the same year the subcommittee design review ordinance was adopted by the Planning Commission. I would say more than 10 years ago.
And this wasn't something we were able to vote on during codes enforcement or update.
But so what are you asking us to do tonight?
I'm sorry?
What are you asking us to do tonight? To make a motion or to give direction?
If you would like to make any changes to the design review guidelines, to remove certain items or add certain items, then you can. Staff would appreciate any direction in that sense.
And then it has to go to the city council, or
No, it's just it's a subcommittee design review guidelines. It's just by the Planning Commission at the moment.
Okay.
Well, this is something I think that, it's brought up before. Brian brought up, Commissioner or Chair, that this is something I think residents should be aware of. They should have a say in it and vote in it. Their homes. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. This is, to me, extreme. Something that, am I going to have to put wood siding back up on my house?
No.
So I can't even see. If you want me to ask change, I would say remove it. That would be my suggestion, my motion.
My suggestion would be, if it's a case because the person is concerned about cost, having to add an additional material to their house, then might they consider landscaping? Updating, because if you're going to update the house, you might as well go ahead and also update the landscaping and not maintain just the grass. For example, using drought-tolerant shrubs against the front. Because again, curb appeal.
So are we going to go to all the houses who have dead grass and go cite them?
No, I don't believe code enforcement currently does that, or do they?
No, this is if they are coming in and making
Or maybe the houses, to paint their house purple, we should tell them, sorry.
Currently,
This is...
sorry. Currently, we don't.
Yeah,
regulate
West Covina's
Maybe I should have stayed home.
West Covina's design guidelines doesn't control the color palette like some cities' design
I
guidelines.
just want to control everything else.
But now here would be the question. Right now, the type of roof products we allow on houses, is it just the composition shingles and tiles and wood shakes, or do you also allow the standing seam metal roofs?
We allow the metal roofs as well.
And do you guys also allow the, I forget what it's called, but where they want the flat roof and it's white for energy efficiency? For residential?
The green roofs. Yes, we do allow that. So as far as roofing material is considered, if they do want to change their roofing material, we do look at architectural consistency. Like, for instance, if somebody has a Mediterranean or Spanish-style house and they have S-tile roof, S-roof tiles, and if they just want to change it to composition shingles, then that the flat ones, then we would not allow that because
Talking about a big difference in price for somebody to do, if their roof is bad and they can't afford a tile roof, are we going to pay for the difference?
we do not.
Okay, so I just don't see that. That to me is, they should, that's overreach.
Your suggestion would be to not regulate roof material as it being in the design guidelines.
As long as the house doesn't have to be red tagged, why should we care what they put on their roof? I understand what you're saying. I understand that, these are houses that many of them have already been remodeled. Now we're just going to start enforcing it for the people who still have the siding. Mm-hmm. It doesn't fair. Whoever did this 10 years ago, maybe they didn't like the way their neighbor did their house, so they thought they were going to come over here and make all kinds of rules. I don't know the person on the planning commission who suggested this or enforced it or put the plan out for it or petitioned for it, but it seems to me, again, I get it. Other cities, we're not Beverly Hills, and I think we're better than Beverly Hills, but we don't. It just seems to me that it's telling people what to do on their own homes that they've paid and an immense amount of money for. West Covina is not cheap to live in. I think it's the best city, all the surrounding cities, to me anyways, it's a good city to live. We've never had an issue like this before where it seems just like we're controlling people in their own homes. And you know what, till it affects one of us, I can honestly say, we're not here to represent the city. We're here representing the residents. So say what you want about regulations and tract homes. We're not here to represent rules and regulations. We're representing everybody else here.
But again,
There's no but again.
Yes, there is. With technology, there's always changes that are coming along, like with for example, solar panels. Quite a few years ago when that came about, the state didn't automatically make people use those. But at some point, people are beginning to understand the benefits of solar panels.
Again, that's different.
So are residents currently allowed to use solar panel tile as an option for their roof?
We can't regulate solar panels.
That's by the state.
So they can use solar panel tiles?
Yes, we can't regulate the aesthetics of solar panels.
Then if that's the case, then why are we going to regulate the other stuff then? So, I think it's, giving the homeowner the opportunity to pick the material they want and is beneficial to them. And I think at the same time, it can be a super cheap material because we don't want it to. I think it creates maybe a safety issue if we allow a homeowner to install something that's not up to code or up to safety standards. So I think there should be some sort of review, but at the same time, give the homeowner a more broader options to pick the material they want on their home. If it's Spanish tiles or another expensive type of tile, that they should be given that opportunity to design their home like that. At the same time, I think that homeowners should be given the opportunity to upgrade and modernize their homes.
Well, maybe there should be a petition for West Covina residents to see how they feel about this. That's my opinion.
That's also, if I may, Commissioner Becerra, that's part of the workshop that we're having tonight. It does give the community an opportunity to know what's going on and be presented with the proposals or the feedback from the community. They also had the opportunity to speak at public comment. I'm not sure Mario's here. He didn't have anything to say, but These are just guidelines, design guidelines to help make sure that the cities, it's not to pigeonhole homeowners into one style or force them to design their homes a certain way. It's to provide a design aesthetic for the city as a whole, so you don't have a purple house next to you, right?
Or you have someone taking the cargo containers and they've decided on a particular street that currently has houses with stucco that they want to use a cargo container in order to live in.
So the process is to help be some design guidelines. Of course, people are going to want to, design their house a certain way. Everyone has their preference. And so even with these design guidelines, there is room for people to have the aesthetic that they wish for in their home. It's not really to prevent certain styles or architectural styles in our community. It's just to help keep an aesthetic in our community. I don't know if that helps answer or help address some of your concerns.
And to add to that, if say that they do not comply with the design guidelines and they still would like their preferred design, there is an option and an opportunity to be able to process their application or their project as they're proposing it. If, for instance, if staff does not agree with it because it doesn't comply with design guidelines, we forward it to the subcommittee. If the subcommittee cannot agree with a decision on the materials, the subcommittee can also forward it to the Planning Commission. So it doesn't stop at the staff level or at the subcommittee level, and also they pay the same fee whether or not it goes to the Planning Commission or it gets approved by staff. So the fee for the subcommittee design review is a flat fee depending on the project. So if the project is no square footage a project that does not involve any additional square footage, it's just a porch or a patio cover or just roof change or just building material change along the front position of the door, that's a $100 subcommittee design review fee. But if it involves an addition, then where they're adding on a master bedroom or some type of square footage to their existing house, it's a $500 application fee. So it's capped at those amounts and they're not deposits. So in comparison to the other applications that our city and other cities process, those application fees are very minimal and are not an outrageous amount for the type of review.
So you said there's a workshop that is being held. How many residents have been given notice and how are they given notice?
All right, so tonight is the
study
workshop,
session.
the study session with the commissioners. And so it is a public meeting that the public is invited to come in and provide.
How are they given notice?
We agendized it and noticed it on our website, and I think Joanna.
You know how many people look at that? Well, we got one in the audience. I don't even look at that.
Oh no, I added it today. The other slides.
I would recommend letters to every resident and see how they feel about it. You would probably have a lot of residents who would feel very differently.
I mean, yeah, we've been seeing a tremendous amount of applications go to the subcommittee for modern design, and sometimes there's non-consensus coming out from those committees. So I think this is a subject that really needs to be addressed, because a homeowner should not be stalled in the process of another member cannot come to consensus that person has the right to modernize their home. And I think we have to look at also the legal picture stuff that, I mean, it comes to a point where the city may be invading. I mean, invading someone's privacy or their way of life by implementing a policy that doesn't really make sense, saying that no, you're not allowed to put a new high-tech window in your front driveway, or you're not allowed to put that specific paint or design in this community. You have to copy your neighbors. And most of the time, there's only 2 neighbors of the 20 neighbors on the block that have that design. And so I think that this is an issue that really needs to be addressed upon. And I think that the homeowner should be given that authority to decide if they want a modern look or a non-modern look. Either or. So I think that's an important matter to be addressed.
When you live in the tract homes, you don't, especially if they're older, I mean, there's not a whole lot you could do without changing it. Like those houses, there's not a whole lot you can do except the paint or the stucco, because you can't change those frames that are they're still going to look like tract homes. You're just putting stucco. This is like, I mean, I wish I could throw these in the air, but I won't. But, it's like, I'm sorry. It's like, is there another camera here somewhere? I'm being punked. Come on.
But I think there's other ways to address some of the concerns that Commissioner Williams addressed in implementing other policies that address certain things. So, for example, someone can build a house that's contemporary and then add one of those cargo boxes on top of their home as a second story. I think there's ways to regulate, and also there's a way to implement policy that addresses various designs and exemptions to when a homeowner wants to modernize their home. And I think that's how we can accomplish. Some of the things outside of the box of a modern home. So,
thank you. Okay, so at the moment, just to summarize, the 2 items that have been brought up regarding this slide is the building materials and also the roof materials. So I'll go ahead and move on to the next slide so that you can go ahead and take a look at it, see if something comes up that you would like to discuss. And then at the end of the meeting, the Planning Commission can either vote to remove these items, amend these items, or keep these items, or forward it to, or continue the discussion just on those particular items that were brought up today at the next Planning Commission meeting. So I'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. This slide deals with the front porch height. Typically, we do not allow the front porch to be higher than the main roof of the house. Window treatment, they're encouraged. And the other 2 items, the last 2 items in this slide is just something that we look for in plans. They're standard. Is there any item in this particular slide that the Planning Commission would like to bring up and discuss?
No, because it's basic information when someone's asking to make a change. The city just wants them to acknowledge, since it's at the front of the property, that if they happen to be a lot that has a sidewalk and a parkway, then everyone who looks at the plan knows that that's what they have. Mm-hmm. And it's not uncommon to ask for the water heater, which some of the older houses have, or on the outside, unless it happens to be a house that was designed that actually had an interior closet, or they placed the water heater in the garage.
Are you talking about painting those new silver little closets that they, the encasements, the closet that they put the water heaters in, the ones like if they pull it outside if they're in the house and they want to put it outside, so you're talking about painting those to match the house?
Yes.
What if it's in their backyard and nobody can see it?
If it's in their backyard, then that's fine. But this is only for design commission items, which are basically things that can be seen along the front elevation and from the public right of way.
Well, I could see about the porch, not wanting it to be higher than the house, but that's, again, they would have to get the permit or go through, that's what the update was for. I mean, that may already be in there, I'm not sure, but.
These items are already in place. So if there's any items in here that you would like to change, if you can let us know or discuss, so.
Well, I think I've already made I think that if they want to update their house and use decorative brick or remove the siding, I mean, I think that house was tastefully done, that was updated. There was nothing wrong with it. It was done in a workmanlike manner. It made the house, it was very subtle changes, but it made it look much more updated. And it still kept the same track home look. As a matter of fact, all track homes are not exactly the same. Okay, they have different types of attributes, whether they're from left to right to left, or to the garages on the left or garages on the right. They have different decor. They're not all the same, even though they're track homes. That part I would remove, of how they have to ask for an application to decide how to update their home. The other construction items, the porch is valid.
How about when it says encourage window treatment, is that encouraged or mandated?
Encourage. On to the next slide. The first item, if they're changing the pitch of the roof or raising the roof, to consider allowing enough space in the attic so that they don't have to put like centralized air or ducting in the exterior or on the roof, so that there's enough attic space so that they can accommodate the central air conditioning system within the attic.
Now, why is development? So if a homeowner has to do that, why are we allowing developers to not do that? Like the ones, I'm not going to mention specifics, but the developers who are designing some of the new homes in West Covina, they have the AC system outside. Why were they not required to put it inside?
No, we do allow air conditioning systems to be outside, ground mounted.
Okay.
But the city in the single family residential section of the code, we do not allow roof mounted air conditioning system unless there isn't any area on the property that can accommodate any other area on the property that would be able to accommodate the air conditioning system to be located in. Like, for instance, if the setbacks are too tight, if the space is too tight, or there isn't a location on the ground where they can put the centralized, the air conditioning condenser unit, or
Do they even put them on roofs anymore?
I'm sorry.
They do.
There are
Because I've seen some like on Lark Ellen where they have them, and if I was a homeowner, they don't look very aesthetically.
Yes, they still put them on the roofs.
Okay.
So the only way that we can't, or the city is not going to tell a property owner that they're not going to be able to have any air conditioning unit at all if the roof is the only place where they're able to put it. So that's the only exception that we
have a
have.
permit for a roof anyways. So that would be something they would apply for to pitch.
Yes, that is why this section is in the code or in the design guidelines, is if they're raising the roof anyways, so that they can think about property owners and designers can think about, oh, okay, we're raising our roof, we should raise it another inch or two so that it can accommodate the central air conditioning unit in the future. So it's just something that can make it. The design guidelines are a list of things that property owners should consider or should or are required to consider in making and designing their homes, in their guidelines. So they're not written in stone; they're flexible, and if they do not comply with the design guidelines, it goes to a subcommittee, and the subcommittee can decide whether or not their design is aesthetically pleasing or if it makes sense. Otherwise, it wouldn't be approved. So
There's not a whole lot you can do when you're raising it. It has to, if your house is rectangle, it's going to have to go, up and to the side, or it depends. If it's
and this is only if they're raising the roof.
like this and like that, there's nothing.
Right.
I can't even do nothing.
So you're talking about people who had rock or graveled roofs, which are flat, because they didn't have an attic area to begin with. So you're just saying that if they do decide they want to remove their rock or gravel roof or flat roof, you're asking them to create a pitch, and if you're going to go to the expense of creating a pitch, make it enough area so that if they do want to have central air and heating, then they could place that on the roof.
That's correct.
So you're asking them to create a pitch, or no?
We're
They want to, right?
We're asking them to
If
consider.
they're already proposing to, if they're already proposing to, if say somebody wants to change the design of their house where they have a flat roof and they're proposing to pitch the roof, so that they should consider pitching it enough and raising the roof enough so that they can fit a air conditioning unit inside. So
Ducting in there.
yes, so that's something that they want in their design. We're not telling everybody that has a flat roof that they have to pitch the roof.
Got it. Okay.
Landscaping, if it's destroyed, it should be replaced. That's pretty standard. And then the second story design guidelines is in some way similar to the single story design guidelines. Two-story additions, just note that two-story additions at the moment require, for any amount, if you're adding if you're adding a second floor, it's going to require an administrative use permit, which requires no neighbor notification. So it currently what we're doing is that in most instances, the subcommittee directs staff to start the neighbor notification, and if somebody requests a hearing, then it's automatically forwarded to the Planning Commission. But if nobody requests a hearing and they're okay with the second story design, then the neighbors are okay with the second story design, and we typically just approve it. With assuming that it complies with the design guidelines and the subcommittee design review agrees with their design. So the difference between the single story and two-story design guidelines, one of the main ones is privacy. The subcommittee reviews the design also and takes privacy into consideration. If there's a window looking into the neighbor's yard or swimming pool, then at times staff or the design review subcommittee would ask the applicants if they can either redesign the floor plan or change out the window locations or make it frosted, just depending on the circumstances.
Because I noticed one thing, with newer construction. With second stories, they tend to want to match the distance of the first floor. Whereas in times past, they would step it in a couple feet on the side. Because again, usually they're putting bedrooms on the second floor. So for safety, we understand if there's a fire that they might not be able to get out from downstairs. And so I didn't know if you're seeing more people saying, okay, if we do the second story, are they willing to step it in so many feet so that it's smaller, so that they can have whatever size windows that they need for ingress and egress, whether it's at the front of where the bedrooms are at, or if it happens to be on the side, where you have your neighbor and maybe you have a 5-foot setback originally, but say they're going up with the second floor, but if they step it in an additional 2 or 3 feet on the side, you don't have a direct.
Currently, the zoning code requires a 5-foot setback for single stories in certain zones, at the very least, and a 10-foot setback for 2 stories at the very least in certain zones. But in the area district, I believe 4, it's 7 feet for a single story, and I believe 10 feet for 2-story. And in the other area districts, I believe 5. The required setback is 10 feet, whether it's a single story or 2-story. So there is that concern that the required setbacks that the city currently has addresses those concerns. And also, also in the front, the required setback for single story is 25 feet in most areas in the city, and 30 feet for a second floor. So I'll go ahead and, if it's okay, I'll move on to the next slide. So again, the window treatment in this side, this slide brings addresses balconies, and it points out the privacy concerns that, or issues that balconies may bring up. And the first item is similar to what Commissioner Williams was saying about the stepping in and horizontal vertical breaks. And the first item on this slide talks about the administrative use permit process, or the conditional use permit process, that at the very least an AUP, or administrative use permit, is required for any 2-story design, and that does require neighbor notification, a 300-foot radius. And the other items are on this slide is similar to the single-story design guidelines that have already been discussed regarding the parkway and the landscaping. And that's the end of the presentation. If the Planning Commission has any more input, or if the Planning Commission would like to give staff direction.
I have one more thing to say. On an appraisal on a property, a house that is updated is going to have more value than a house that is not, outside and inside. So you would be depreciating somebody's home by not allowing them to update it.
These guidelines, if I can, Commissioner Becerra, it's not a way to impede on homeowners to update their homes. We definitely want, I mean, part of the revenues that the city receives is through property taxes, right? So if you appraise your house and it goes up, it can be self-serving, but it's also, it beautifies the community at the end of the day. And so, like Joanne mentioned, these are guidelines, and if a homeowner decides not to go or design their remodel or their facade based on these guidelines, they can design it however they please, and it then would go through a different process. I think then it goes through the
They
plan.
not like the way the city wanted them to do it, and it would be more costly, then they wouldn't do it, and then it wouldn't beautify a city. They'd just leave it. So there's pros and cons, but I think there's more cons than pros on this.
Okay, then what would your suggestions be to either amend some of these guidelines or, if you want to remove some of
us
them?
choosing what materials and how they, if they should stucco or put wood siding, which would give them termites after a while, and then stucco lasts longer. The wood siding you have to constantly be painting. If you do, and there's elderly people, they'll have chipping painting all over. We're not going to make them paint it and do the upkeep. Stucco is just easier. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. If for us to tell them really, and we're not designers, we're not architects. We're not here to tell them how they can. If you're going to do Mediterranean, you have to put arches. Well, I did Mediterranean in my house. I don't have arches. I just, if you told me I have to put arches, I would just, it'd be worse. It'd be worse as a citizen.
Correct. There's a balance between asking them to do improvements and then making it too costly for them to do
Absolutely.
the facade. Yeah.
So I'll open the floor for questions and comments by the commission.
Yeah, but you have to come up to the podium.
I mean, there's a...
Nope. This is a non-hearing item, so it's
Okay.
only for the commissioners to speak on.
I'm sorry, who's the gentleman in the audience? I don't know everybody.
What would it be?
Sorry.
Right there, the attorney.
Would it have been through oral communication?
I'm sorry?
Would his speaking opportunity would have been doing oral communication?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Sorry, would his opportunity to speak would have been doing oral communications or
Yeah.
non-agenda items? Oral communication.
Yes.
Okay. If does any of the commission members have an issue with me reopening oral communications?
No problem.
Okay. At this time, since there is a member of the public present, I will reopen oral communications with a 3-member consensus to proceed. Did you fill out a pink card? Just make sure you fill that out and give it to Paulina after. But you can go ahead and speak. What was your...
Mario Sobivaro, District 3. I've read through this, and I think one of the things that stood out to me is that the language is suggestive. There's a lot of should but not must. And I believe that leaves it open to discretion and interpretation, whether it be the committee or whoever the governing body would be for these things. I am one that loves to do additions and modifications and upgrades to the home. So I'm very familiar with these aspects. But that was the main thing I just wanted to kind of throw out. Is my sense of it after having read it is that the language is suggestive and it's not robust, so to speak, and definitive.
Where does it stop?
That's where it becomes into the discretion. Because I understand, as Commissioner Williams was stating, somebody wants to use containers to build a home. There has to be some way for citizens or community to discuss that and then somebody to make a decision on it. I don't see these guidelines telling anybody that they can't do that. I see them being more like these are the materials that we would like, or this is the manner that we would like certain things to be. But I don't see it as a definitive in stone. But again, it is open interpretation depending who's sitting on what governing body that makes that decision.
Great, thank you so much. And make sure you give that pink card to Paulina. And so at this time, I will go ahead and close oral communications and go back to non-hearing item design review subcommittee guidelines and open the floor for questions and comments by the commission only.
Well, it says you have to apply for the changes, so it does, in effect, tell you what you can and can't do. So maybe we should just go through these one by one, just bring them back up, and if we want to do it tonight.
We have it up on the PowerPoint if you want us to.
Can we sit it down here, though?
Oh.
Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's there, Brian, I think.
Yes, it is. It's there. It's there. Yeah.
Okay, I guess we'll go one by one and see if we can come to a consensus. If not, then we can bring it back to when we have more members present. But Joanne or Paulina, would you guys who would like to go one by one on the change? Or
Yeah, we can bring up the PowerPoints and we can go for the top one. The front elevation of the house should be designed to engage the street through the placement of a door, windows, and the front porch, as well as other architectural features that define the elevation of the front of the house. So I don't, if you guys have any concerns with that one, or we can move on to the next one.
No, I think everything except for the porch should be at the discretion of the homeowner.
So does the commission have any changes on this one-story design guideline?
Well, again, with the porch, which I think Commissioner Braceras mentioned, with the porch, you understand why the porch would end up being lower than the main
That's
house.
what I'm saying. That's different. If they're building a porch, that's a permit, or the height. They would have to get that cleared with the city. But
Right, but see, where they're allowing for that is under that. That could be one of the things that they may want to.
they should separate that because it doesn't. That's a whole different. That's an addition. That's not an elevation. You're changing. You're adding. These other items are just cosmetic. That's not cosmetic. That's addition.
That actually is part of the front elevation. Normally, when you have an elevation of a building, you have the
Okay, so I'm proposing you remove that and change the elevation to the other items. If you're going to put in new windows or, whatever this. If you want to get really detailed, then you're going to have to just put everything out there and make it a whole page of everything
So this is not
applies to a home.
the elevation, it's the placement of where you put the porch in the front. And that's if they have a porch, right?
Right, because many of the tract homes never had porches, like Craftsmen do.
But you would like to remove the front porch?
Yeah, from that particular, because it's already in another paragraph.
Okay.
Okay.
So what are we doing?
I'm fine with it the way that it is. Or window
Also-
front porch.
I don't believe it should be designed to engage the street. I think. Are we giving the city the choice to?
So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to get your feedback and we're going to redline it and then we'll be bringing it back. So,
To the next available planning commission meeting.
okay.
I just think that, okay, so the elevation, so we're talking about where she's saying where somebody could put windows or, so do we have to get permits to put windows in?
Yes.
Okay, so anyways,
So the porch.
so we have to I mean, if somebody's just changing windows, they're not changing anything from the look. You're talking about like closing windows and putting windows somewhere else.
Yes and no. Okay, so the first item is talking about certain developments. For instance, like if somebody wants to remove 80, like a garage, right, and build another garage to replace the garage that was removed, but the garage that they're removing is in the front, so they're closing up the garage door in order to make it part of the living area, and they're just going to leave a blank wall. So in order to make it engaging to the streets and more aesthetically pleasing to the streetscape, rather than allowing them to just replace the garage door with a blank wall, it'll have a window there. So it's not just half of the house is not just a blank wall.
But wouldn't they need a permit for that as well?
Yes, they do need a permit for that, and that's part of their review.
We saw that in the most recently in the subcommittee, right?
Yes.
So it's when they, for example, you have your main home, then you have, let's just say you have your main home, and then you have a garage that connects to your main home, and now you seal off that garage just to have one door only. So you want to make sure that's cosmetically correctly done, that maybe there's a way to add a window or even a double glass doors. In this one case, when it came to the sub-design committee, I think we recommended, instead of you putting a window there, you could put sliding glass doors that open up in between, which makes it a very beautiful addition, a modern look to match the main house. So I think it's more of making sure that there's some sort of oversight when it comes to design. That
You're not going to put a sliding glass door in the front of a house.
no, on the garage in this case, because it was turned into an ADU.
Got it.
Are we on bullet point 2?
And
Again, they would have to, on the garage, they still have to get the permit for that, and
Oh.
it would have to go to design review.
yes, so and these are design guidelines for the design review subcommittee.
So these are the current rules in place, right?
Yes, yes.
So so these are the rules that are in place right now that you've been voting on as a subcommittee member. But so they're asking us, should we change any of these bullet points right here? Do you think any of these bullet points need some sort of changing to it?
So there was a change by Commissioner Becerra to the first bullet point. Is there any changes to the second one? Design the house so that all the setbacks have been met.
Well, what change am I putting in, though? My change is that it should be omitted.
Yes, so we're removing that.
Got it.
And we're gonna bring back a red line copy for you guys to
Thank
review.
you.
So what was her proposal?
Remove the front porch.
No, not the front porch, the whole thing. I mean, we're telling them how to see. It's very vague. You know, it doesn't say what you can and cannot do. It just says, so once they get there, they'll say, you know, there's a lot of things they could say they can't do. It's not very specific on what can and can't be done.
Okay, so we can make it more specific. And then we'll draft some language and then bring it back so that the planning commission can review that language. So we'll go ahead and revise the first.
Are we saying that the front porch cannot be in the front of the house, or?
No, I think
understand
she
here.
wants the first bullet point to be a little bit more specific.
Yes.
In regards
We
to
will
what?
rewrite that.
Like, for instance, no blank walls wider than a certain amount, like to
Okay.
prevent that garage, or the front entry door must face the
So-
front of the street, or something like that.
If
So-
this allows the staff and the subcommittee members a little bit of flexibility, if we start being more specific on what, like examples Joanne mentioned, then I think that's going to go contrary to what you were saying, Commissioner Becerra, where you want to give the homeowners flexibility as to being able to design something. But if you get more specific in this one
No,
bullet
well, I'm
point,
trying to just find a happy place for everybody. So if it's something drastic, of course, then you're going to have to go for the city. But if it's just little lipstick and rouge, I mean, let's leave it, let them do their thing.
Okay.
Specifics, then potential to say it's not written that way, so therefore you have to follow these guidelines as it is. So which proceed and proceed. So it wasn't specifically detailed. When it becomes specifically detailed, you
And also when something is specifically detailed, the subcommittee would not have, I guess the subcommittee in itself would not be able to approve a project and say that it complies with the design commission, the design review subcommittee guidelines when it obviously does not. There's no flexibility there, and in the planning, there is also no flexibility of having the planning commission review the project. Whereas if it's more vague and not very specific, then that ability could be done. If it's more specific, in order to allow any or approve any application that is aesthetically okay or pleasing, then the Planning Commission would have to go through the whole process of amending the design guidelines again before they are able to make a decision on an application.
So can you give an example, Joanne? I know that you've been talking about, if you want to replace your windows, there's a permit process that you go through, but then there's a different process of I'm going to redo the facade of my house or do an addition. So
Okay, so if they are just changing out the windows, same size windows, slightly off a little bit from where they have, or adding on an additional window to the front facade of the house, we generally just allow that through the building permit process. We don't necessarily require design review subcommittee application for that. But if they currently have...
Generally, that doesn't mean is that a yes or a no? So that should be in there as well. That's what we're talking about, being specific. Does not apply to people who are just replacing windows.
Okay.
that's what you wanted.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that clarifies it for us.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and add that.
So they can do whatever they want as long as they're not doing a major construction, and they have to get the rid. Then they go to design review, and then it all goes by whatever is approved.
Yeah. So if I want to replace my windows and it includes windows that are on the front of the house, I won't be going through the design guidelines. I won't be going through this process. It would be going through building a simple over-the-counter permit. But if I wanted to enlarge those windows, add go from a single door to double doors in my front door, then that's when I would go through the design guidelines, and then that's when I would follow these recommendations or guidelines at the end of the day.
And the double doors, I'm telling you, I don't think I would, say that you have to get a permit to put double doors in, but I see what you're saying.
There's different scope of improvements that would trigger the design guidelines, and a simple window permit wouldn't. But the larger scope of projects, the ones that
For me, also, like I said, to remove siding should not have to, warrant an application. To put stucco on your house should not have to warrant an application. If you're not changing anything, you're just doing stucco, so you can get rid of the ugly old siding that's always peeling paint. You always have to paint, and it's outdated because you wanted to update your home to a more modern look.
if
I don't
you're
think that should be something you have to apply for.
no, if you're redoing the exterior of your home, you don't, and like for like, you're not changing the facade, just painting or something like that, then you don't have to go through the design process.
That's not what I heard. I heard if you can't even take off your sidings because they want it to look retro. Like the old.
Can you clarify, Joanne?
Okay, so if Okay, so if the bottom picture is their current house where they have wood siding, or if they have brick, stone, or so forth, any type of siding other than just stucco, they can't just remove the wood siding or the brick or the stone and replace it with purely all stucco like this house, right? So that would require a design review subcommittee application. But if the house is already like the top house where it's all stucco and with no alternative materials, then we will not. They can change the stucco, paint their house, repair without going through the design review subcommittee application. So if it's the same material, same exact thing, no application. But if it's a change, then an application.
So you just said, though, if they wanted to take off the siding, they'd have to put in an application. So
Yes.
to me, I don't think that should be removed.
I think it's kind of like with the new developments we see now that are being constructed over on Vincent and Roland. 10 years from now, the people may want to change it. And in their case, since they have an HOA, they will deal with the HOA before they come to the city.
These houses don't have HOAs.
Correct. And so at some point, several years back, the city decided to provide some type of perimeters and identified what kind of things they would like to look at.
So that's one of the changes that you would like to propose. I'm assuming you would like to eliminate all of it or a portion of bullet point 3.
Yeah, so anything that, again, I mean, it's real simple. No one should have to ask to remove siding and want to put stucco on their home. It looks cleaner, termites, no paint peeling, less upkeep. I mean, it'll look nicer. If you want to beautify the city, we want to have, peeling paint everywhere. I just think that, or if they want to put a decorative brick along the side, around at the side of the house, that looks nice. I mean, that shouldn't be something you have to apply for, if you want to put on a tile roof or a comp roof, it shouldn't have to be told what kind of roof that you put on.
Oh, so can we stick with this bullet point before? So do you want what portion of this did you want to edit or remove or strike out, I guess?
You just put any major changes to, construction to the home would, need to go, pull a permit or application and design review. But any minor, stucco to me is I mean, and we could put in there what is considered minor. Stucco, removal of the siding, wooden siding, to put stucco or just same size windows replacement, would, be easy, approved by permit or whatnot.
Well, she brainstorms that. I'm going to call for a 5-minute fast break so I could take a restroom break real fast, because if I leave, there'll be no quorum. So we will return give me 4 minutes, so 4-minute break, and I'll be right back. Okay, great. Planning Commission is called back to order at 8:41 Pacific Time PM. And we'll go back with Commissioner Becerra.
Are we going to motion to continue?
Or I think the Commissioner.
Are we still on? We want to finish item 1, or do we want to do?
Oh, I thought if we could just get a summary of the overall changes that you'd like to incorporate into the guidelines, and we can do that instead of going line item by line item. Because I think, if I'm hearing you correctly, you don't want to require additional materials or alternative materials for replacing stucco.
Yes.
And the other item was the roof material. I think those are your two concerns. Okay.
And also, Commissioner Becerra wanted to be more wanted to be more transparent on items that will not require subcommittee. Like, for instance, same window to same window change out,
Right. Right.
door change out, and so forth. So
Yeah, that sounds better. So let's do proposed for the next meeting. We'll bring them back, and then it'll be in red some proposed changes, and then the commission could vote. The whole commission could vote yes or no on those additional changes. Great. Any other comments from the commission? Okay, I'll make a motion to bring back the design review subcommittee guidelines at the next available meeting that staff determines. Is there a second?
I'd like
Second.
to. Oh, go ahead.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Chair Gutierrez and a second by Commissioner Becerra. Paulina, do roll call.
Commissioner Becerra,
Aye.
Vice Chair Williams,
Aye.
and then Chair Gutierrez,
Aye.
with Commissioners Heng and Lewis absent today.
Great. So we'll go on to commission reports, comments, and miscellaneous items. Would any of the commissioners like to report or comment on an item? Seeing none. Well, I'll just make a comment. I'll just say that I'd like to commend all the city staff and Paulina and our assistant city manager, Roxanne, and all the community service workers and our police officers and our firefighters and our city council for hosting a remarkable 4th of July celebration. I know Fireworks was proud to be a partner for the city of West Covina and its owner, Mr. Salsa, and it's great to see such a remarkable event come to life.
It was amazing. That was the best fireworks show I've ever seen. It was absolutely, I mean, you just had to say, oh my gosh, that is amazing. And it was so organized, and at the end with just everything, it was, I can't even say how great it was. I'm going to say that there should be more food. I was in that line a long time, but it was delicious. And popcorn too. That popcorn was.
Any more comments? Great. So we'll go to Community Development Director's report. Paulina, do you have any items to report?
Yes, just wanted to thank you guys for attending the 4th of July and our residents. It was a really successful event. We did have a very spectacular 4th of July fireworks show without any instances. Wow, I can't speak tonight. That was just a kickoff to some of these summer events that we're having. We're starting the Cool Kids of Summer, which the first event was last Friday. They're Fridays. And they're throughout the community at 11:30 a.m. and each Friday it's a different location within our city of West Covina. So for more information on that, if you could go on our website to check out where this Friday's event will be. We're also continuing our summer concert series. Tomorrow will be Southland Band, and it's here at the City Hall in the courtyard. We will be having our next regular city council meeting on July 18th at 7 o'clock here in the council chambers. And then the August 1st council meeting is canceled due to National Night Out. So we hope that we won't be seeing you in the chambers, but we'll see our community members out in our community. And I think that's it for me on that regard. And I don't think there's any council actions to report to the commissioners this evening.
Great.
Chair, let me add. The next Planning Commission meeting this month will will be canceled due to lack of business. So the next Planning Commission meeting will be held on August 8th.
Oh, okay.
Or scheduled to be held on August 8th.
Thank you for reminding me, Jaron.
July 18th. July 18th or no? Yes.
July 18th, the City Council.
City Council.
City Council, yeah.
will be August 8th.
Yeah, so it'll be August 8th. And just as a heads up, we are going to be doing some improvements to our parking lot the first week of August, the 3rd and 4th and 10th and 11th. It'll still be accessible to park on certain sections, and we'll be doing social media posts and so that residents know where they can be parking on those days. So.
Great. Since there's no further business to consider, this meeting is adjourned at 8:47 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.